Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of At the Boundary, the podcast from the Global and National Security Institute at the University of South Florida. I'm Glenn Beckmann, Communications Manager at GNSI, and your host for At the Boundary today. On the show, one of our favorite guests returns as Professor John Licato joins us to talk about all things artificial intelligence. I know it's difficult to believe, but a lot has changed in the AI world since the last time we had John on the podcast. Before we start talking with him, however, I want to say thank you from the entire GNSI team to everyone involved in last week's GNSI Tampa Summit 5, the Russia-Ukraine War Lessons for Future Conflicts. The conference was a smashing success again, and our keynote speakers, retired Marine Corps General Frank McKenzie, as well as John Kirby, USF alumni, class of 85, Go Bulls, and former White House National Security Communications Advisor, were exemplary, as were all of the speakers and experts who spent time with us sharing their insights, analysis, and experiences. We're grateful to all of the people who attended TS5, as well as to the groups involved with the conference, the USF Institute for Russia, European, and Eurasian Studies, IRES, the College of Arts and Sciences, US CENTCOM, and also the Research One program, part of USF Research and Innovation. And a very special thank you to IRES Director Dr. Gulfo Alexopoulos, who played an integral role in developing Tampa Summit 5. If you weren't able to attend last week, the videos from the conference will be available this week on our YouTube channel. When you subscribe to our channel, you'll be notified when those summit videos are online, as well as any other new content we create. Speaking of content, the best way to keep up with everything going on at GNSI is to follow us on our socials at USF_GNSI on YouTube and X, at USFGNSI on LinkedIn. Okay, it's time to bring in one of our favorite guests of the podcast, and he's certainly been the most frequent guest. What is this, John? 5?
No, second or third.
No. We had you on, and then you were on with Norma. And then
right.
Two times with Craig.
Yeah, that's
Craig
right.
Martell. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, the two-parter. Yeah.
So I think but this is the first time we've had you on where you're appearing as a big star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So to better explain, John is one of the stars of a new University of South Florida marketing campaign, the next phase of the Be Bold campaign for USF. This time around, Be Bold is focusing on the heroes all around us here on the USF campus, students, faculty, staff, everywhere. So John was chosen to be part of this campaign. So give us the story. Did you answer a casting call? How did they find you?
I got nominated, and I guess they figured out that I do a little bit of AI work and have talked about it in the past. So for lack of better choice, I suppose. They filmed me, and I was really honored to be chosen for it. And it's a really exciting initiative that I'm able to talk about. So it's Be Bold campaign. I guess the idea is that this new college that we're establishing, College of AI, Cybersecurity, and Computing, right, is really a courageous move to take, right? Because putting AI as the first word in the college's name, in the middle of, what some might describe as a hype wave, but I think those of us in the field know that it actually is a real lasting technological advance that, we can't ignore. That's affecting every single field of study, every single job on earth, right? We're still talking about it, right? In today's podcast, we're going to talk about it. So I think it's a bold move to try to take leadership in this field and to do so for the state and be one of the first in the country to set up a college like this. So I think the marketing campaign is really set up to make that clear that, what we're doing here at USF is not an easy move, and it's bold.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And we were talking before we started recording, and I'm really happy to hear that the acronym for the new college, CAKE, is getting some traction, although we're not sure how long, maybe.
Yeah, I do like the acronym CAKE, CAICC. The name might change. We're hopefully going to find out news about a potential sponsor next week. So we're all really excited to find out what's going to happen. And things are going to change really quickly over the next few months. We're expecting to officially launch the college in the fall, and that's not too far away. So
right, and I think if I remember correctly, you're going to begin offering an undergraduate degree in artificial intelligence, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're in the stages of planning everything out. Getting all the curriculum approved, creating all the electives for it. Initially, it's going to spin out from the computer science degree that's already existing, which already has a lot of AI electives that the faculty have been teaching. But, we're really hoping that it's going to turn into its own thing. It's going to be one of the few AI centered degrees in the country, and just another example of how we're trying to take leadership in this field.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, GNSI is all about national security, but what we've emphasized over the couple of years we've been around is that national security takes on many different forms. It isn't just military. It isn't just the 3-letter agencies in Washington, D.C. It's all kinds of different things. We've heard talk about the stories of, I believe, China is trying to develop AI hospitals. And then I know that a couple of months ago, were you guys part of the agreement with USF Health for the AI, the voice recognition research that they're going to try to use to diagnose patients with using voice and AI?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not directly involved, but, I know the people that are working on it.
Yeah.
Good researchers.
Yeah. So it's really fascinating to see where it all goes. And just a little bit that I personally have been involved in just using little chat GPTs and things like that. It's not going anywhere. No. There is no doubt about that. So since the last time you were on the podcast, there have been some big developments in the AI space, and that's not a surprise. I guess the two that come to mind immediately are DeepSeek and Lucy, and we can talk about each of those a little bit more deeply.
Sure.
But for any of our listeners who are unaware of those two things, can you kind of give us a little brief description of those two programs?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start with DeepSeek. So this made the news a couple weeks ago. The company that created DeepSeek is a Chinese company, and just kind of set the context. The GPUs, graphics processing units, which is essentially the hardware that does a lot of the heavy lifting for training deep learning systems, right? Are export restricted. So we're limited on how many of those we can export to China, for example, right? Now, the company behind DeepSeek is a Chinese company, and they came out with this version of their LLM, which is called DeepSeek R1, late December, something like that. And it was able to show an improvement on a bunch of benchmarks of reasoning, even beyond the performance reported by some of the best, American models that we know of, right? OpenAI's models and some of the open source stuff, right? And that caught everybody by attention because, they wondered how did they know how to do this, right? How did they, because OpenAI, for example, is fresh off the heels of these many billions of dollars of investment. And part of the way that they got that investment was they made the case that we need to make language models really big. And, we at OpenAI have this lead over everybody else. We have technology that's so far ahead of other AI companies. And all of a sudden, this Chinese company comes out and they got things that can beat them on a bunch of reasoning benchmarks, right? So immediately, NVIDIA's stock dropped. And, I think it was reported as the largest single day loss in value of a company's stock in history. Like 600 billion or something in one day.
That's saying something because there have been some really big crashes, especially the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And part of it might be just market correction, right? NVIDIA's stock, because they're the ones that are providing the most commonly used GPU, their stock has been just increasing tremendously over the past few months. And maybe it's just a correction for that, right? So whatever it is, people said I don't know how they're doing it. Did they find some secret technique that doesn't require GPUs anymore? And, and the one thing that makes what they did remarkable is not only did they beat a lot of not only did they get the best performance on a lot of benchmarks, but they made all of the details available. So they completely published how they did it, the training technique they used. They made it all free, right? We can download the full weights for their largest 600 plus billion parameter model, right? You can use it locally. They made a version where you can, it's a big model, so you have to have a lot of compute power to run it locally. If you don't want to do that, you can interact with their version on their website, just like you can do with OpenAI. And they made that much, much cheaper than, for example, OpenAI's API.
Were you surprised by that? Because the Chinese have a well-earned reputation for being very secretive about their IP. Yeah. Were you surprised that they just made it available for anybody to kind of comb through, look through?
It was very surprising. Yeah. It in some sense you can describe that as I don't know, maybe a offensive move, right? It caused a massive drop in confidence of the future of NVIDIA and OpenAI's lead, right? And kind of sent a message that, look, you guys aren't as far ahead as you claim you are, right? By making the details available about how they did the training, they make it so that a whole bunch of other companies now can pick up where they left off and build off of it, right? Yeah. So, in that sense, maybe it was a strategic move. Well, yeah, okay. It certainly was a strategic move, right? Yeah. But I mean, speaking as a scientist, I'm very happy they did, because it's really nice to actually know how the technology you're talking about works.
So DeepSea was introduced in a spectacular fashion. Lucy was just as spectacular, but in a bad way. It crashed and burned. And in fact, they turned it off 2 or 3 days after it was introduced. So tell us a little bit about that, what your reaction was, and, to the whole thing.
Yeah, that's
so. What is Lucy, first of all?
So one thing that they all have in common, Lucy, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, they're all based on LLMs, large language models, right? And they're all based on very similar underlying technology, what we call the transformer neural network architecture. And the thing is, it's not, when you're trying to figure out how to make these models better and more capable, it's not just a matter of throwing more compute power at it and then magically it's going to turn into something smarter, right? To be fair, there is some of that, right? The past few years, we've seen that simply taking the models that we have and then making them twice as large, 3 times as large, does seem to increase reasoning capability. But we're reaching kind of a plateau with that, right? We're realizing that you have to experiment with different things. You have to find small tweaks in the architecture. You have to change how it incorporates its training data. You have to try a whole bunch of different things, right? No one company can do that. And so, that's one reason why what DeepSeek did, I think, is actually good for the science, because now it makes it so that a lot of different companies can try different possibilities, and a lot of them are going to fail. Some of them are going to discover some new tricks, and then if they reveal their details, it advances the whole field, right? That's the ideal. That's how we'd love for it to work. Doesn't always work that way because money's involved, right? So anyway, Lucy was one of those cases where, unfortunately, what they tried did not work out as well, right? Their basic idea, this is a French company, and what they wanted to do was create a language model that was trained on, number one, a lot of French language data. So a lot of the models that we're using, OpenAI, they're trained on massive corpora of primarily English text, right? Just because they're widely available, and then they wanted to say, okay, we're not going to remove the English text. So there's a lot of data there, but we're going to make it, I think it's like a 35% French text, something like that. same amount of English text, and then you got programming code, multilingual stuff. So they wanted to make this sort of natively French trained language model. And they used a smaller architecture size as well. So 7 billion parameters, I think. Compare that to the largest version of DeepSeek, which is like 650 billion parameters, right? So when you do that, you got to expect that its capabilities are going to be reduced. They also did not use a lot of so when you take a language model, you train it on a lot of data. We call that pre-training. And then you have to do some subsequent stages of training, like RLHF, which is where you train it on human conversation data. So it learns how to talk more human-like and, engage in interactions that seem more natural. There's a whole bunch of subsequent training stages you got to do to refine it. They didn't do a lot of those subsequent training stages. Not to say they couldn't have, just they didn't do it yet, right? And they got excited about it. They put it online, and then I think people used it and expected that it was just as powerful and just as well trained and tested as ChatGPT, and it wasn't. Yeah. And then they had to take it down. But
so it got a little bit of an unfair judgment.
I think so.
There's a little bit there, yeah.
I think so.
The expectations. It wasn't that it was just unfinished, but the expectations were so high.
To compare this to 5 years ago, right? When a researcher would try something unique, they say, "Oh, I'm going to try this little thing different with training my language models." Right? They put it out. Only researchers pay attention. Researchers know the limitations of these things. They know what they're trying to do, right? But now that AI is in the mainstream, right? Someone puts out a language model, they make it so anybody can use it. You're going to have people that don't understand what it's for. They use it expecting that it's fully open AI, and then it goes and says silly things, hallucinates, right? Mm. And that's
I remember your conversations with Craig Martell when he was a guest on the podcast, the both of you, the conversations you had. And Craig was the first chief artificial intelligence and digital officer for the Department of Defense. Yeah. He stood up that entire department for the DoD. I remember something you two talked about, and it was the trust bond, that humans have to learn to trust AI. So the trust bond between Lucy and humans is broken.
Yeah.
Is there any hope for the people who develop Lucy that Lucy 2.0 might be able to bridge that broken bond?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is they're probably going to have to hire a marketing person, and figure out how to communicate the next release. It's always possible to create another version that can fix it. I think with Lucy itself, you can, if they've used some of the tricks that we already know work, like RLHF and training on human conversational data, that sort of thing, right? Maybe even using the reinforcement learning techniques that were pioneered by the DeepSeek team, right? Mm. I'm sure that they can get some improvements, and then they're using a 7 billion parameter model, which is relatively small for, even though 5 years ago that would have been massive, right? But they're going to need a lot of funding to do training at the scale that they need, and if the government supports them, then they can probably acquire that. But they can easily show improvement on benchmarks, and just as easily, companies that are in the lead can drop. And see that with OpenAI, right? They just released GPT 4.5, and it's been long awaited, but I'm not hearing really a lot of buzz about it, right? I'm not hearing a lot of excitement about it.
So outside of the university, you're also the founder of a company called Actualization AI.
Yes.
On the surface, to someone like me who I can spell artificial intelligence, and that's about the breadth of my knowledge of it. It seems like you're developing, or you have a product that would kind of prevent what happened to Lucy proactively. Is that a fair assessment? It seems to me that what you're working on, and you tell us a little bit about it, is to prevent any future AI systems from having those false answers and nonsense answers, and just ultimately breaking the trust bond between the people using the system and the system.
Yeah, that's a great transition because I think researchers understand that large language models are subject to hallucinations. Even if you tell them to do something, you tell them don't give away this piece of information, they might just slip up and give away that piece of information, right? Which researchers are familiar with that, but because AI is now in the mainstream and every company's trying to throw AI into their products, right? They are not necessarily aware of these possibilities for failure, right? What I'm thinking, what I'm seeing for 2025 is that companies that are embracing AI are going to look for more confidence. They want to know, if I'm going to put AI into my chatbot and put that out on my website, how do I know it's not going to give away private information? How do I know it's not going to make up stuff, right? Just say violent things, for example. And that's what we're trying to do with Actualization AI, is to give you that confidence. And we're doing that by providing testing tools. So let's say that you have an AI product, a chatbot, and you want to be able to test to make sure that it's not going to violate privacy, right? Well, our tool helps generate test cases that are customized to your use case so that you can find out when your language model or when your AI fails and fix those failure points before you actually put it out into the market, right? And what we're trying to provide is some confidence that you have actually tested. You've been Actualization AI approved before you put that product out, and it does something embarrassing that might leave your company liable. So we are NSF SBIR funded, National Science Foundation, and that funding started in late 2024. So we're very early stage, but this is a University of South Florida spinoff and an application for AI technology that I think could benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So taking a small pivot, but maybe not too large of a pivot, I was really interested to see Microsoft introduced a couple of weeks ago their newest quantum chip, Majorana 1. Now, Microsoft, being Microsoft, they've gone so far as to claim Majorana 1 is a fourth state of matter. It's not a solid, it's not a liquid, it's not a gas, it's a fourth state of existence. From a marketing perspective, that's legit. I mean, that is hyperbole at its purest form. Ignoring that for a second, what are your thoughts on something like that and its potential effect, not necessarily on quantum computing, but on AI? Will it make AI building better, faster?
Yeah, that it is really exciting. When we think about what is going to come next, so AI changed the world, got everybody excited, and we think about what's going to come next, what's going to be the next big change, right? Quantum computing is definitely one of those that's on the horizon, along with major advances in robotics and so on. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know if the fourth state of matter claim holds any water. I think there already are more than 3 states of matter. I think plasma is counts.
Imagine that the Microsoft marketing guy didn't tell the truth.
Yeah, I don't know if he has a physics degree, but we'll have to check.
But anyway,
the possibility of quantum computing is something that AI researchers are paying attention to. It's been known for quite a while that if quantum computing can scale, because the way that it does computations allows for many computations to go on in parallel, that could break a lot of, cryptography algorithms that we use, a lot of ways that we use mathematical limitations to protect our data, right? If quantum computing can actually perform the computations that we hope it does, then it might be that we can break credit card encryption reasonable time, right? Which is a huge problem, right? A lot of systems are built on the assumption that it's not breakable, right? The good news is that there are a lot of people working on what we call post-quantum cryptography. So they're trying to figure out, if we do have quantum computers, how do we make even tougher encryption so that even quantum computers can't break it, right? And quantum computers do have some limitations, so they can't just straightforwardly run any algorithm, any AI algorithm that you throw on them. There's limitations in how you can actually read the results of a quantum computation, because with qubits, if you read the result, then it collapses it down to so that the superposition no longer holds, and it seems that one class of algorithms where quantum computing might bring the most benefit is certain types of optimization. And optimization is, that's all AI. AI is always doing optimization solving, right? So AI could be something that benefits quite a bit from quantum computing. So we're paying attention to all these advances.
So I've only briefly read a little bit about it, but you probably can touch on it a little bit more deeply. The power requirements for AI are, in a word, massive.
Yeah.
And to the point where I see companies, some of the tech giants, actually considering building their own power plants.
Nuclear power plants.
To power the AI. What are your thoughts on that? And, and there's obviously the corollary, the effect on the planet, that kind of power consumption and the need to create that power to run those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of put those into numbers, it's been estimated that GPT-3 to train it once cost about $100,000 just in electricity costs, right? But remember, I said that it's not just a matter when you create a state of the art AI system. It's not just a matter of training it once and then all of a sudden you got new benchmarks being broken, right? You have to train it, and then you figure out something doesn't work, and then you go back and tweak one of the parameters, and then you train it again, and you got to keep doing that. A little bit of trial and error, right? There's a little bit of art to it too. You might train it thousands of times, and then you realize that none of them work, and it's just there's no way to guarantee that, right? So if you multiply that $100,000 cost by however many times it took to train it, that's already a lot of electricity being used, and that's just one company, and that was GPT-3. GPT-3 is estimated to be, like anywhere from 10 to 100 times smaller than GPT-4. And, we're on GPT 4.5 now, right? And then that's one company. So now you've got all the other companies, Lucy and DeepSea. So the power costs are massive. And there is a lot of research in how to do the computation more efficiently, right? However, the trend in machine learning and deep learning and AI is that whenever they give us more powerful hardware and they allow us to do more computation with less money and less energy, we find a way to fill it up again, right? And there's no reason to believe that's not going to change if they give us more efficient power consumption. So I don't think that's going away. Their AI is such a powerful asset for any country or organization to have that it's going to be an arms race, right? If one country says, well, we're going to make it so AI can only use this much power and that's it, right? Then they're going to fall behind quickly in the arms race, and that's not something that I think countries are willing to do right now.
We just have to figure out how to generate massive more amounts of power and do it cleanly, right?
That's the goal, but not only because of AI, right? And electric cars and just general power consumption is going up. So
yeah, for sure. So as someone who's both researching and building AI, what's one development in the field that you're really excited about?
Oh, yeah, it's so hard to not. It's so hard to limit that down, right?
Okay, we'll give you two.
Okay, that might make it a little easier. So, yeah, I'll focus on things that we're anticipating for 2025. So one of them is, as I already mentioned, the increased attention to security for models. A lot of companies are realizing that AI is not magic, that it's incredibly powerful, but it's not magic. You have to You have to test it. You have to find out what its limitations are. You have to account for those. And I think people are going to be looking for a lot more confidence building solutions. And so that's what we're trying to provide with Actualization AI. Another thing that is anticipated with this year is the rise of agentic AI. So that's an agent is essentially, you can think of it like a classic large language model, except now it has access to tools. So it can search Google on its own. It can fill out websites, right? There are agent frameworks emerging so that the AI can move the mouse around and click on things and fill out forms on your computer, right?
Job seekers everywhere are jumping for joy right now.
You're going to see that. I'd say a month. From now, right? And what makes them different is they have a higher level of agency. So it's not just a chatbot that you give more tools to, but you give it the ability to decide when to use those tools. More agency. That's where the agentic hype phrase comes from, right? So we're going to see more of that, and we're going to see frameworks to make it easy to use. So, if I tell Siri to search the web, it can already do that, right? But if I tell Siri, go to this website and copy and paste this text and then put it into this PDF and then print it out, right? Those are the kinds of things that are in the agentic space. So, I mean, the increase in capability of the AI tools that we already interact with is going to, if it hasn't exploded already, it has. Just imagine what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be an ongoing series of explosions from now until however many years from now.
Yeah, we haven't hit the peak yet. That's for sure.
Well, I want to wrap up today with a question that I've kind of wrestled with myself for a number of years. And now with the acceleration of AI across literally everything, I've walked right up to the line of despair in some cases. I have two daughters, 25 and 22 years old. I've tried to coach them through their formative years, the social media phase, and tried to tell them about the artificialness of those platforms and the deliberate manipulation and things like that. Now with the ubiquity of AI, I've been telling them the greatest challenge their friends and the younger generations are going to face in the future is to be able to tell what's real and what's not. And also to care that there's a difference. Because the lines between those two worlds are not only blurred, they're almost non-existent anymore. What do you think? Am I being fatalistic? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's, are we just being old men about this and saying,
or that,
that yes. This insistence on reality is, important, and the new generation doesn't care about it. I saw a comment on the social medias, right? That said, "Oh man, it's so funny when people just lie for no reason," right? And you see this on Instagram posts where someone posts a video clip and then the comments will say, "What movie is this from?" And people will just put random movies, just to be funny, right? Whatever. But there is a sense in which it doesn't even matter whether what you say is true anymore, right? It's funnier if it's not. The confusion that it causes is fun, and okay, maybe that's just a thing to do when you're young, right? But there is a deeper problem that we need to be aware of, which is that sometimes being accurate matters, right? And because it's going to be so easy to create false versions of everything that we typically use to verify truth, like videos, right? Videos aren't quite there yet, right? I don't know if the ability to generate realistic videos is going to accelerate that much this year, maybe 2-3 years, right? But it's definitely coming, right? There's definitely going to reach the point where you can't tell the difference. There is reason to believe that we are never going to be able to tell the difference between AI and human content. There's deep theoretical reasons why that may be the case. I can explain it briefly. So we have this paradigm in AI called adversarial learning, right? Where you have a generator, something that can create an image of cats, right? And then a detector that can tell whether an image of a cat is a real or a fake one, right? Okay, so the problem is that once you have these two systems and you have the ability to train them, you can have them operate in an adversarial way. The generator generates images, the detector tells the differences, and then they learn based on that. And then the generator learns how to do more realistic images of cats, and the detector learns how to tell the difference between those. And they just keep iterating, right? That's an arms race, so they keep getting better and better until a human can't tell the difference between what the generator created and an actual image of a cat. But as they get better and better, they start to reach this point where the signal disappears. There's no longer any variance that the generator and the detector can use to actually tell the difference between you, because the variance approaches the variance that you would expect in reality, and there's no longer any signal, so it could actually tell the difference. So that same pattern can exist with videos, text, right? It could just be that we're already at that point with text generation, where if I show you a random piece of text, you can never say with 100% confidence that this is ChatGPT generated. So what do you do? What do you say to to kids who are growing up and
because don't we need them to be able to tell what's real and what's not real?
Yeah, we need some ability to tell, but I think that we have to accept that ability is just not going to exist. And we have to think about what that world's going to look like. I think it's even more important to teach them to value the difference, right? That is something that I don't know how to do. I don't know how to get people to actually care that what they're looking at is fake. Maybe that's just one of those old man things, old man values, right?
Right.
I hope not.
I'm going to go crawl off into the corner and curl up in a ball now.
Yeah, nothing's real. Yeah.
John, thanks so much. It's always great having you on. And look, I can't wait to see your story on the new Be Bold campaign, and tremendous success to you and Cake.
Yeah.
And also to Actualization AI. You're doing lots of great things, and USF is lucky to have you, and we're really grateful you're willing to share some time with us.
I'm always happy to be here.
Many thanks today to Professor John Licato from the USF College of Artificial Intelligence, Cybersecurity, and Computing, or as the close personal friends of the college call it, CAKE. It's a new college created here at USF less than a year ago. John is playing a key role in its creation, and he's also one of the stars of the new USF Be Bold marketing campaign. Keep an eye out for him on all your screens. It's been a great update on what's going on with USF's new college, as well as a deeper look behind the current headlines in the AI space. John, we look forward to the next time we have you on the podcast, assuming, of course, we'll be able to afford you anymore. Next week on At the Boundary, we'll gather together some of our thoughts on the recently completed Tampa Summit 5. We started this after our previous conference, and it was a great success, so we thought we'd try it again. Next week, we'll have a roundtable conversation about key takeaways from Tampa Summit 5. If you don't want to miss it, or any of our future episodes, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. That's going to wrap up this episode of At the Boundary. Each new episode will feature global and national security issues we found to be worthy of attention and discussion. I'm Glenn Beckmann, glad to be with you today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week at the Boundary.